know it has been hard. It has been very, very hard. But you guys have been amazing at rolling up your sleeves and doing whatever it takes to keep our doors open for our kids. So I want to just start by saying thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope you have felt a little support from central office. So those of you who are here from central office, I want to thank you guys too, because they've been doing their regular jobs, but they've also been coming to campuses and helping cover classes and doing whatever else is needed. So I want to thank them. But most importantly, I want to thank those of you who are on our campuses working with our kids every day. I appreciate you tremendously. So in the 1920 school year, we started some work with a very important organization called Friends of Texas Public Schools. And we started that work because I could see how we were starting to be scrutinized as a public school system. And it just, nothing riles me up more than when I hear people say negative things about our people working in our schools, because no one works harder than you guys do. And I thought, we've got to do something to try to help people understand just what you do as school people, what you do for kids each and every day. You're not only responsible for the academic growth of our kids, but you also provide social, emotional learning support. We make sure our kids are fed. We do all of those things that are so important to help our kids learn. And so I wanted to do something to try to help people see that. And I thought, okay, let's get some outside people to come in and let's do some ambassador training. People who are not part of our school system. And Scott and Leslie met with me and they said, you know, it really works best if you start with your own people. And I really questioned that. Oh, really? Our people are all about all the great things we're doing. They know all the great things we're doing. And then that night, I went home and I opened up my Facebook, and we were replacing some air conditioners in one of our campuses. It was during the summer of 2019. And we accidentally had some training scheduled on that campus on a day when the air conditioners were shut off because they were replacing the units. And one of our employees posted how awful we were as a school district that we did not care enough about our teachers to turn on the air conditioners. So it was lack of communication and a lack of understanding. But when I saw how many likes and how many shares that made, I called Scott and Leslie the next day and said, you were right. You were right. We gotta help tell our story here first. So we started this work in the 1920 school year, and we had several sessions, and people really loved the learning. And then guess what happened? So we're kind of doing a reset and a restart, and you are here for a reason. You were selected by your principal or if your central office by someone that you work with to be a part of this work and to help us tell our story. So thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. I wish I could be here with you tonight. I'm actually getting ready to go to spring fling in a little bit. But I appreciate you taking the time to help support public education. There has never, ever been a more important time to make sure that we're telling our story in public ed. And I hope you guys all see that. And I want to just take a moment and a personal privilege and say thank you to Cassie Sanders. She's here today. She does an adult floral class, guys. And it is fabulous. So if you've never taken advantage of that, I'm filling up your class right now, aren't I? Cassie's going to go, oh, great. But it is one of the most relaxing, fun things I have done in a long time. So thank you, Cassie. Sorry, I just had to give her a shout out. It's awesome. All right. Let me introduce to you Scott and Leslie Milder with Friends of Texas Public Schools.
Okay, can y'all hear me on this one?
I'm so excited to get to be back in Lubbock and working with you guys for another school year. My name is Leslie Milder. I am a proud product of the Texas Public School System. I am proud to be a card-carrying Texas Public School teacher, okay? I'm the real deal. I taught high school, and I love everything about school, y'all. I love the kids. I love my colleagues. I like the way the hot laminator smells. I like all of that crazy stuff that makes school. I love all of it. And my husband Scott and I are the proud parents of 3 public school kids. We have one, y'all, that we just got off our payroll. It's not as easy as I thought it was going to be for that to happen. So that's a big deal. He is serving in the United States Air Force. He's stationed at Moody Air Force Base in Georgia. We have a daughter who is a junior right here at Texas Tech. And we have a 16-year-old daughter who is a junior in high school. So we are both public school kids, public school employees, and public school parents. We have lived the public school life in all possibilities. We have lived it. And not only that, but y'all, I came from teacher DNA, okay? Long before I was a student in the public school system, I have really been in the public schools in Texas since birth, okay? Because my mom was a teacher, and both of my mom's sisters were teachers. And at one point, all 4 of us were working in the same school district, okay? When I was a kid, in the summers when other kids are getting to like play and ride bikes with their friends and go swimming, and I wasn't getting to do those things because those 3 women, they would drag me from one, and I'm going to say it unair conditioned, because back then we really didn't air condition the schools, one unair conditioned classroom to the next, because they would help each other get their rooms ready for the first day of school. Y'all, I can knock out bulletin boards like nobody else. I am so fast at a bulletin board. My very first job in public education was, this is going to be a real throwback, but it was writing the book numbers on the book cards. We used to have cards for every kid, and they had all their books numbers on there. And that was my first job working in the public school system. I had the benefit of growing up listening to these 3 women talk about their job and their stories, the things that they would come home at the end of the day and talk about. My all-time, there's just so much that happens during the day. No 2 days in this job are exactly the same, okay? Every day is something new, something else crazy and fun that has happened. They would come home with stories about kids that would make you laugh until your sides hurt. Y'all, we can't make this stuff up. My all-time favorite is a story. My mom was teaching 3rd grade at the time, and she did one of those elementary teacher things, 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. And she had a little girl in the back of her 3rd grade classroom with a prosthetic eye. And that little girl, she took it out and she rolled it to my mother at the front of that room. See, that is a story that I can only tell in a room full of educators. Okay, some of you even knew what I was going to say before I said it. Anybody else, if I told that to a room full of anybody else in any other profession, they're like, that does not happen. Yeah, it does, and even crazier. Then they had stories about, things about our kids that just break your heart. Some of the things that our kids have to overcome just to get themselves up in the mornings, get on a bus, and get to our classrooms. And then they had these crazy, fun, awesome stories about the people that they got to work with. People who, my mom and her sisters are retired now, but, people whose names are still spoken and people who are talked about in our family like they are family. Because really and truly, the people that you work with every single day, that's what they become. Because you're spending more time with them than you do the people that you live in the house with. They become your family. And so as a kid growing up, listening to stories like that about education, I couldn't wait to be a teacher. I could not wait to join this profession. And it wasn't until I, graduated from college, finished my student teaching, and got my very own classroom and my own group of kids. And I had a really cute classroom, by the way, because man, did I call in some favors. And then I started to pay attention to the conversation about public school that wasn't around my dinner table, right? To the conversation that is being, and the story about public ed that is being told outside our walls, oftentimes by people who have no formal connection whatsoever to the public school system. And sadly, I realized that for a lot of people, they're under the impression that there is a crisis in education because mainstream media is telling them that there is a crisis in education, right? You have all seen these crazy headlines that appear in on mainstream television news, in the newspaper, scrolling through your social media feeds, and it's always the same story, right? Our kids are falling behind their world peers. Then you might have some cheerleader somewhere post something inappropriate on the World Wide Web. You know that's going to go viral real quick, right? That's actually, we're from the North Texas area, and that is actually a district up near us that really happened to. They got a whole entire Lifetime made for TV movie out of that. That is, I pray that every year at the beginning of school. Dear Lord, please do not let me be involved in anything this year that might end up as a Lifetime made for TV movie. Okay, I don't want to be in that. But you know the story. Our public schools are falling further behind. Nearly 1 in 10 fails assessment exam. That was the front page headline one August of the Dallas Morning News. Now, I taught social studies. I've never taught math. I really try hard not to do math in public, but I am pretty sure that they could have written that headline to say that more than 90% of our kids are passing their state assessment exams. First graders suspended on weapons charge because school is very scary, right? It's a very dangerous place these days. They're ill-prepared, cheating runs rampant in the public schools. If we do something good, it's probably because we cheated, right? Schools missed the dropout mark. We're going to talk about dropout rates and graduation rates here in just a little bit because it's something that sounds so simple, right? But if you've been in education for a hot second, you know anytime we count kids, there's some complicated math to that. Official to monitor troubled schools. Well, clearly we're troubled. There's a whole crisis. And now we get to have an official from TEA. That's going to be fun. And I made that last one up. But y'all know darn good and well that if some Tasmanian school kids outperform some American ones, oh, we're going to hear all about it, aren't we? Yeah, we're going to have sent teams of people to Tasmania, and then they're going to come here. We're all going to sit through a training where they tell us how to teach Texas kids the Tasmanian way, because that's going to be better. Yes. And, you know, for so many people in our local communities, you know, in every community across Texas, there's a large percentage of people that aren't living the public school life, right? Their kids are grown. They don't have kids. It's been a few years since they've stepped foot in the public school system. They're not picking up their kids in the afternoons and having dinner with them at night and listening to those conversations. They're not coming into our schools for school plays and concerts and, you know, parent-teacher meetings, and they've lost their connection. And for those people in our communities, unfortunately, that's all they're getting. That's all they're hearing about the public school system. And y'all, there is not a single thing up there that paints even an adequate picture of what you guys did all day today. There is nothing up there that is reflective of how hard you are working and how very much you are achieving. And we've got to figure out a way to get that story out. In 2005, I was fed up, okay? I was sick. It feels like you're getting picked on after a certain amount of time, right? And the only things they ever say are about how we do such a terrible job. It's disheartening after a while. And so I was done with that. And my husband and I, through a strange course of events that I'll kind of tell you all a little bit more about in a bit, but we founded Friends of Texas Public Schools. And so at the time, we wanted to Texans just don't know how good their public schools are. So we're just going to put out all the good stuff, okay? Well, we'll talk about how that changed in a minute. But at the time, I thought, it's a history teacher in me, I know. But I thought, have you ever been in that conversation with people who are critical about public schools and they want to talk to you about education back in the day? evidently, y'all, there was this glorious day and age in public education in this country. It was just phenomenal, right? Because back then we taught the 3 R's. Yes, and everybody graduated from high school, and when they graduated, they knew how to read. It was this glorious golden age of education. And so when we started thinking about, starting this statewide organization that talks about, what a great job we're doing, I wanted to pinpoint the moment, right? So first of all, when was the golden age, and when did it end? When did that switch get flipped? When did we go from this fantastic golden age of education to the crisis that we are apparently in, that we're being told we're in every time we open the newspaper or scroll through our news feed? And so back then, we actually had to do some real research. We went to the library and all. And so the way we thought that we could find that was by looking back through mainstream media headlines, right? When was the first time the public was told that there was a crisis in education? Well, if you had asked me before we did our research when I thought the golden age of education was in America, I had no facts, y'all. I had zero data. But I had a guess. And my guess was that it was going to be the 50s. All right. I don't know why I thought it was the 50s, except that it seems like a really happy decade. There was like an entire TV show about how happy the days were. And so I just assumed that meant public school too. Okay. So I was shocked when we found it. It was published in March of 1958. It was a 4-part Life magazine series titled Crisis in Education. And part 1, not only was that the first time the headline ever appeared in print, but it was the first international comparison of students too. Because on the front cover of that Life magazine, that is an American high school student being compared to a Russian high school student. Anybody know what had happened between the US and Russia 1 year prior? Sputnik. We were in a space race. And Russia launched Sputnik, and it appeared as though we were behind. And y'all, for those of us who work in the field of education, this article is significant for us for 2 reasons. One, it was the first time that the blame for something that was occurring like on a national level, and it appeared as though the US was behind, that was the first time that the blame for something like that was laid squarely at the feet of the public school system. Because I promptly ordered one copy of all 4 of these 4 parts and read them. And it says that the U.S. is falling behind Russia because we are not teaching our kids, wait for it, enough math, enough science, or enough technology. Sound vaguely familiar? Yeah. And that's the second reason why this is so significant. Because once this was published and we caught the blame, it is repetitive. It never stopped. And we have been fighting since 1958 to get out from under the idea that there is a crisis in our public school system. People want to talk about the golden age of education being back in the day. All right, let's talk about prior to 1958. All right. Well, in 1901, the graduation rate in the United States was 3%. 3% of students graduated from high school in 1901. That number didn't hit 50% until the mid-1950s, when we were apparently headed into a crisis. And if you think about that day and age for just a second in American history, did the public school system welcome all kids in public school then? No, they didn't. Public school system at that moment in American history was still a little bit selective about who could come to public school. And y'all, that gets me whipped up and on my patriotic soapbox in a hurry because people, that poem that's on the base of the Statue of Liberty that says, send me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. That's really more appropriate, printed on the front door of every public school in America. Get on in here. We don't care where you're from, how much money mom and dad have, what, learning challenges you may have, just get in here. We're going to love you up, and we are going to give you an amazing education. And we're going to move heaven and earth to make sure that you graduate with a high school diploma. Y'all, the reality is, contrary to what we read and hear about public schools, our Texas public schools have never in history been more successful than they are right now. Y'all, our kids are living in a golden age of education. Y'all, think about it for a minute. I mean, we ask more of kids today than we have ever asked of kids in school at their age before. I saw it as a student, right? Okay, so as a public school student, I learned to read in Mrs. Foster's first grade class at Heather Glen Elementary, okay? She brought us up, we had the little reading table, and back then we had groups, red birds, blue birds, that's how we did it back then. And I learned to read in her first grade class. We have 3 public school kids. You know when they were reading? Before the end of the first semester of kindergarten. Full day kindergarten too. Remember when we used to just have half day kindergarten? Yeah, that ship has sailed. You know why? Because for the last 30 years in this state, we have added to the curriculum and added to the curriculum and added to the curriculum. Nobody has ever gotten a memo that says, hey, stop teaching that. Right? It's the other way. Here's some more. Here's some more. Here's some more. Yeah. And, and time again, what's so frustrating is that time and time again, not only are Texas educators and their students meeting all of those new increased standards, but they're exceeding them time and time again. And don't even get me started on what all you have achieved and been able to do during the COVID crazy. Because I will challenge people to find me another profession that took a 100-plus-year-old system, firmly entrenched system, and could flip it on its head in the span of 2 weeks to meet the needs of our students from their homes. Nobody else is doing that. And I don't know why people are not recognizing exactly what educators have done since March of 2020. Anyway, I'll step down off the soapbox now. Y'all, it's so true. Our kids they're successful. And you know what? I 1,000%, this job is hard. It is harder right now than it has ever been. It was hard in 2020, but it's been even harder, I think, this year because we thought we were getting normal, but that normal that we used to know is gone. And not only did our kids lose instruction, but they've also lost socially, which I think has made things like classroom management and discipline harder. Because not only did they lose the year and a half, whatever, of instruction, but they lost what they're learning, right, socially as well, and what they're learning about the culture of school as well. And you know what? I have all the faith in the world that all the learning loss and all the, we're gonna be fine. When kids take the test, we're gonna be fine. Because we should never, ever, again, underestimate our own abilities. After what we have done thus far, we should never underestimate how well we do what we are asked to do. When we come into a district, I always like to start with a little pop quiz where we celebrate a little bit of your own success. And I start, okay, don't boo me out of the room or throw food. I'm going to start with accountability ratings, okay? But I do not start with them because they are my favorite, okay? I start with accountability ratings because this is the bill of goods that Texans have been sold, that this is how they're going to know whether or not their kids are in a good school or a good school district or not, okay? And as district employees and public school employees, we kind of need to know how to talk about that, right? Do y'all, right now, we got the A through F, but do y'all remember, used to we met standard, and I love it when people say, oh, this new accountability. Okay, well, first off, we need to clarify, accountability, not new, okay? Because we used to be met standard, and can y'all remember, think back real far, once upon a time, we were exemplary and recognized. Do y'all remember that? That was such a glorious time. We liked those words. We liked them so much that we printed them on vinyl banners and we unfurled them off the sides of the school. We liked that one. But you know what happened? Too many banners. That's what happened. Too many schools and too many school districts were exemplary and recognized. So the state of Texas was like, oh, well, obviously that is flawed. We need a new accountability system. And we went from being exemplary and recognized to congratulations, you met standard. There were shockingly fewer banners with met standard printed on them. Because it sounded like we went from being amazing to hanging on by our fingernails. When in reality, met standard was the highest accountability rating we could get. But a funny thing happened with that accountability rating system too. Over 98% of the schools and school districts in the state of Texas met standards, so obviously that one was not working. So we threw that in the trash, and now we get to have an A through F. And we had like 1 year of that, and then the world went off its axis, and we've been stuck with the same rating. And now we're gonna have we're gonna bring them back, and I mean, it's just comical to me that we're gonna test this year, and it's gonna count, because I can't. I mean, we've got to be explaining to people, okay, y'all, Lubbock ISD, so in 2019, before the world went sideways, you got a B, which is great. But what we need to be sharing with people when they ask about accountability ratings is, yes, that is how the state of Texas and a bunch of people who've never taught children have decided that this is what they're going to count, right? What we need to be sharing is that educators are always going to hold themselves to a much higher standard than anyone else outside this profession is going to make up and put upon us. Where they think we don't like accountability ratings because we don't want to be held accountable. No, and we need to make that very clear. Typically, where most of us in education have an issue is because it is so heavily weighted on test scores, right? One kid, one test, one day, hope they didn't wake up and have a bad day. That's generally where we object. And we need to start explaining those things when we find ourselves having conversations with people and when they're curious about those things. Because y'all know when they label and they put that rating on this year, you know it is going to be statewide news, whatever the new ratings are. And we're going to have to step up and step into some of those conversations and explain to people about accountability ratings and why, if they dip, why. All right, let's talk about graduation rates for a second. This is something that sounds simple. Well, that's the number of kids who graduate from high school. Well, we all know that when we count kids, there's always strings attached, right? Well, when we report as a state, okay, all 50 states are required to use the same method when reporting graduation data, okay? It's something called the 4-year on-time completion rate, or sometimes people call it the longitudinal graduation rate. That is the number of kids who come into a Lubbock high school as a freshman in the 9th grade, and they graduate in exactly 4 years. Okay, so for the class of 2019, that number was 89.3%. Y'all, that is great. Lubbock ISD kids, they're not dropping out left and right, okay? That's the number of kids who graduated exactly 4 years. But y'all, another 3.9% of that class continued on and got a high school diploma. They're not included in that number when we report it to the U.S. Department of Education. So it looks like, if you're just looking at our graduation rate, it appears as though our dropout rate is actually higher than it really was, okay? Because those kids didn't manage to do it in exactly 4 years. They still got a high school diploma. And y'all, that frustrates me so much because, kids, just like adults, sometimes life happens, right? They make a bad decision at some point and they get off track. But y'all, then they decide to kick it in gear and they're working double time, and so are their educators to RTI them and tutor them and love them across the finish line, and they get that high school diploma. It's been my experience that a lot of times the kid that takes an extra semester or an extra year to get their high school diploma is actually working twice as hard as a kid who went through in exactly 4 years. And for them to not be counted is just, it's belittling, I guess, to them and the educators who helped them get that high school diploma. And then if a kid, so y'all had 0.1% that earned, this is a Texas high school equivalency number. So if they take the GED or, then they get that number. They are also not counted in our graduation rate. So your actual graduation rate was 93.3%. Y'all, that's fantastic. Y'all are working hard, and I have to say this because, y'all, I am high school, but y'all need to know that I come from a very strong elementary influence, okay? My mother she would beat me with her wooden spoon if I was remiss and did not say, that's not a high school only success. We use high school graduation numbers because it is one of the few things that is actually the success of every single person employed by Lubbock ISD. Transportation, maintenance, custodial, food, nutrition, it's all of us that played a part in getting this number across the finish line and a high school diploma. That's why we use those. They don't just magically show up in the 9th grade and know how to do school, okay? I mean, if you have forgotten that, you should go down to kindergarten down there. It's not, no. Okay, and then we have things like this that are provided and are opportunities for our students within our local school districts. Y'all, the Lubbock High School Theater did Beauty and the Beast. And not only did they put on a whole a production of Beauty and the Beast, but the members of the crew spent time visiting feeder elementary schools in full costume and reading to the little ones. Okay, I'm out of range. All right, LISD Career in Tech, CTE, includes training in high wage, high skill, and high demand jobs across 16 nationally recognized career clusters. CTE programs include over 100 high school courses focused on hands-on learning, practical skills, and work-based learning experiences and student internships. Y'all, this is something we do a lot of work in communities across Texas with our 65 and plus community. Y'all, these are people, and one of the common things when we work with them and we bring them back to school that we hear them say are things like, well, why aren't we teaching things like wood shop anymore and home ec? And I'm like, hey, we are. Okay, we are. It's called construction science and culinary arts, and they graduate with certifications in those fields that make them immediately job ready. School does not look the same today that it used to, right? Especially for people that are like my parents' age, and it's been a hot second since I myself was in school. It does not look the same. And so we've got to share with people so many times, this is the curse of knowledge, and you'll hear me talk about that a little bit. You can't unknow what you already know, and we all know we have to provide all this stuff, right? Y'all, our community doesn't know we have to provide all these things. And so for them, knowing that there are programs and things like that in our schools, that's news to them. They don't, if it's been a second since they've looked through that list and had a kid trying to pick their endorsement, right, and take classes like this, they don't know. Lubbock ISD All-District Marching Band has been invited to perform in Washington, D.C. on the 4th of July this year. You know, another thing I think people lose sight of when they're bashing the public education system in this state is that for a lot of kids, the first time they cross the county line is on a school bus, on a field trip, or with an organization or a club or something that they have joined as a result of being in the public school system. The opportunities and the experiences that our kids are able to have because they're in our public schools is huge. Third graders at Miller Elementary School spent time learning about water safety. They received instruction on dry land, and then they went, the Lubbock ISD assistant varsity swim coach, they got to visit her in the aquatic center where they got to swim and practice what they'd learned. Yeah, they're taking swimming lessons at school. because you have facilities where you can do things like that. Yes, the things that I put in this presentation, oh wait, we have one more. Simon Middle School, Wolverine, is that here? No, it's not here. Okay, I don't know why that's in there. I'm like, that is not here. That is not a Lubbock school. You know what I do is I Google, right? If I was a parent and I was shopping for a school district, because y'all, that is what parents do now. If they have a kid and they're moving and they're being transferred for work or relocated, right? You know what they do first? They look at the schools and they Google around and they see what they can find, and then they will buy a house in that school district. They're shopping. And so that's what I do when I come into a district. I just kind of Google up, what can I find about Lubbock ISD? And so in a minute, I'm gonna have y'all tell me what I need to know. But y'all, in addition to knowing some local successes, right? And I always suggest we got to start with our own feeder pattern, right? We got to know the successes at our campus and where our kids came from or where they're going, and speak well of that. Start there. But we also have to have a few things filed away about the entire state of Texas, because y'all, in Austin, when they're making all those wonderful one-size-fits-all mandates for us, they're not just looking at how amazing an individual district is. They're just lumping every district in the state of Texas together. Even the state of Texas has had to acknowledge that school leaders are good stewards of their tax dollars. Lord, y'all, this is my husband. Look, he always says, he always says, I'm not going to say a word. It's all you, babe. And then this happens. So here, I don't know what he's going to say, y'all.
Well, this is important.
Okay.
This is important. Okay, so I'm the one who pulls the data, and then I give it to Leslie, and she puts it in the show. And I pulled the wrong data for Lubbock High School, because I looked at that and I thought, that's not right. That's not right. So I just looked it up just to make sure. Anybody in here from Lubbock High School? We got Lubbock High School in here?
That was all Lubbock
graduation
Highs.
rates are quite a bit higher than what we put up there, actually.
No.
What's that?
Well, that was the district.
This was high school.
Okay.
This is the high
Okay.
school, because it
Okay.
said Lubbock High School.
Oh, okay.
So I just want to clarify, that might have been the district number. But this is for Lubbock High School, a total graduation rate of 96.4%. Yeah, and let's see. Yeah, 0.4% of those continued for a fifth year. So y'all are killing it at Lubbock High School. Just wanted to say so.
That number was for the whole district.
You can have this back now.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. Breaking news. I'm gonna look
up Lubbock ISD now.
Okay, you go do that. I don't know if y'all have ever worked with your spouse, but it's a different kind of blessing. I've lost the clicker. All right, y'all, a few years ago, I think it's probably been about 10 years or so, the state of Texas decided they were going to come up with a rating system to see how well our school districts managed the money. And I don't think it told them what they were hoping it was going to tell them, because again, 97% of the districts in the state of Texas get the highest financial rating from the state of Texas. We do a tremendous amount in our local school districts with the amount of money that we are given by Texas to educate its kids. Okay, our school districts run very lean budgets. The majority of every budget of every district in the state of Texas goes to people. It goes to pay staff salary and benefits. So when we start talking about cutting funding in education, there is only so much once we pay the bills, and the school district has the same bills that we all have at home, but exponentially larger. There is actually very little wiggle room when they cut our budget before we are cutting people and staff. Texas leads the nation in early college high school programs. In addition to all the CTE certifications and things that our kids are getting to participate in, we offer a ton of AP and dual credit courses. Our kids are trying on college for size before they're ever actually in college. We had a class, our oldest and our middle were class of 2018 and class of 2019. Okay, so if it's been a hot second or you haven't had a kid graduate recently, they get on, so about 3 years of our life, we were on something that I started to call the college tour circuit. These children, they come to you and they're like, hey, we want to go, maybe I might want to go to, and they name a university, and then you got to get on the phone and you got to book the tour through admissions, okay? And then you go out there and they put the hard sell on your kid and tell them how wonderful it is. So we did that. Not only did we have R2, but we were raising a nephew for his last 2 years of high school, and he graduated in there too. So the way our daughter came to us one day and she said, hey Mom, I'd like to go check out Louisiana Tech. And I said, in front of the kids, you're like, absolutely, let me get them on the phone. And then later to Scott, I'm like, that is out of state. We are going to be stuck paying out of state tuition. And so, but good mom, booked the tour. And the way it works in our house, if one of them was interested in a college or university, y'all go and get in a car. Oh, you got 3 friends that want to go? Good, bring them too. So I led a field trip to Louisiana Tech. And I heard all these kids into the admissions office, and that lady looks at them and she says, wait, are all of you in high school in Texas? And they said, yes, ma'am. And she said, well, let me tell you what we do for Texas applicants. Well, I'm thinking, why is it different for kids who apply from Texas than it is anywhere else? And then she says, if you come to us, when you apply, if you will have 12 or more college hours upon completion of high school, we waive the out-of-state tuition fees. Y'all, and you know what? Our kids ended up looking at a few more out-of-state universities, and we found that actually several of them are doing this because they're willing to give up some big bucks to recruit Texas kids because, like I said, y'all, they've just tried on college for size while still in the safety net of the school district that they've been in since kindergarten. And they've been successful, and they're willing to give up some money to recruit those kids because they've already done it. They know they can do it. They've already experienced it. And those are going to be the kids that are going to be able to stick it out all 4 years. Of course, at that point, I was like, all y'all can go to Louisiana Tech. But fortunately, she made the right choice. Oh, my Lord, here we go.
Okay, so
more breaking news.
So for Lubbock ISD, the 4-year on-time longitudinal graduation rate for the class of 2019 was 91.6%. That's really good. And then another 1.1% continued for a 5th year, and about 1% received a Texas high school equivalency. So, well done, Lubbock ISD.
Yes. Okay. No, I'm gonna do this, but it's good. I got it. Thanks. No, I'm good. So when we look at how we rank nationwide, y'all, every year for the last decade, Texas has ranked in the top 5 out of all 50 states. We always come in the top 5. Class of 2019, and y'all, we use class of 2019 because it takes 2 years. I don't know what they do to the data, but it takes them 2 years to bless it, certify it, I don't know, put holy water on it. I don't know what they do, but it takes 2 years. So class of 2019, state of Texas tied with Missouri and West Virginia for 3rd place in the nation. And y'all, while 3rd place is outstanding out of all 50 states, let me also point out that when we break those students down by subgroup and we compare them to their peer, like groups of students to their peers in other states, our kids perform even better. Our white, African American, Asian, and Hispanic students came in 2nd in the nation. Our economically disadvantaged student population and our limited English population came in 3rd in the nation as well. But here's the kicker. Texas gets those results year after year after year, while also having the highest percentage of students in the nation that qualify for free and reduced lunch, which we know is an indicator of poverty, the highest percentage of students who come to us with limited or no English, the highest percentage of students that come from a single parent or a no parent home, and while ranking 43rd out of 50 in how much money our state gives us to educate its kids. So the moral of that story is if you're a Texan putting your kid in a Texas public school, you're getting a whole lot of bang for your buck. And y'all, every single year since 2005, Scott has written that up as a press release. Every year when we get the new data, he writes that up as a press release and sends it out to every major news outlet in this state, and nobody picks it up. Now, his journalism degree tells me that that is because the nature of news is to report the anomaly of the day. Us killing it year after year, that's the norm.
Nearly 1 in 10. Don't brag.
I'm real tired of that attitude, right? I'm real tired of all that negative, those little headlines that just take a dig. They got to paint us in the worst possible light. And after a while, this is what it's leading parents to believe about us, right? That we just wake up every morning going, how can I make the worst possible decisions for kids today? No, that is simply not how people who have chosen this as their life's work, that's not how we're wired up. If you have thought at some point in your career, hey, you know what, I'd like to go to work for the local public school system, this is not how you think. It's simply not. Now, y'all, the things that I found, like I said, are the things that I dug up as if I was shopping for a school district, right? People want, I love it when somebody wants an expert in education and they pluck somebody, like out of a Harvard classroom that's never seen the inside of a Texas public school. You know who the experts in Texas public schools are? Who the experts in Lubbock ISD are? It's all of you. You are the ones that know what the amazing things are in Lubbock ISD. And so I want us, so often we have meetings and we get time together to do things like this. We spend our time focused on the areas that need improvement, right? Which we have to do because our time together is limited. We're not going to do that tonight. What I want to know from you guys, what are the things that we need to be celebrating? What are the great things about your campuses and your departments? What are you doing that is amazing? And so what I want you guys to do, I'm going to give you a little, well, look, we are legit. Like, you're going to get your CPE credit hours for this and all. And I feel like the state of Texas frowns if we don't use the big chart paper when we do professional development. So we're going to use the big chart paper. And I want y'all to tell me, and y'all work together, okay? If you're at a table with 2, join a table with 3 or 4. Work together, okay? We're not all going to have to do this. But I want something where y'all tell me a couple of things that are campus or department specific that are absolutely amazing. And then a couple of things that you wish people knew about Lubbock ISD. What are some great things that you wish you could tell to everybody who is a stakeholder in Lubbock ISD? And I have, look, the big chart paper, it's up here. And to make this activity slightly more fun, I have brought Mr. Sketch smelly markers for you to write with, okay? So feel free to sniff the markers. I'm gonna put them up here. Y'all send somebody to get a marker and a piece of paper.
That's all you gotta know. Okay. I'll be writing what they say, and then I'm yeah, I think what about our attitude stuff? So there's a very strong part of local schools and local prepper teacher.
That's a direct connection to this number right here. Absolutely. So maybe that one.
College, May 19th.
And if we had the time and you had the energy, we would say and read them all, but we're not going to do that. We put them up so you can kind of glance at them. I will read. I'm going to feature a couple. I know everybody's kind of excited about sharing because you came up with that and thought, these are awesome. I want everybody to know about it. But what we are going to do is we're going to share these with Erin Gregg in the communications office, and then she's going to put them out for y'all so you can see them. So here at EHS, I'm not picking them because I'm a favorite, they're just the first over here on the left. All kids aren't, what does that say? SPED. All kids aren't SPED, REACH program. We're not a MHMR faculty. Got some abbreviations. And then Hardwick, teachers do not stop working when kids leave. That's true.
Have you ever seen an empty school parking lot? No.
Yeah, that the myth that y'all teach from about 8:30 to about 3:30 every day and get summers off is way off. Yes, and then the K-12 students do graduate. K-12 students do graduate. Communication has improved between central office and campuses. That's awesome. Okay. And then here we have a Wheelock. Did I say that right? Wheelock? Wheelock? Wheelock. Okay. We wish people knew that we're providing social and emotional learning for every student on campus. Absolutely, always have, but especially in the last couple of years. All-inclusive programs such as ballet and orchestra at the elementary level. Right, yeah, it's a whole lot more than just the academics, which are obviously important. Feeder pattern involvement, morning greeting, Christmas parties, etc., and many hands-on experiences, PK through 12. And then, I'll go one more. Amazing CTE. I saw that one pop up there. I don't think people in Lubbock ISD or Texans, for that matter, really understand the level of or the depth of opportunities that kids have in their local ISDs now. There are a lot of really sophisticated career and technology education programs all over Texas, and y'all are obviously doing some great stuff as well. 120 different CTE courses with high CTSO involvement taught by experienced industry professionals, and teach employability, interpersonal skills through hands-on instruction, leadership opportunities, and community service opportunities. And that's all true at every campus, and supported by every department across this district. Everybody, in fact, we always talk about y'all are educators, but everybody in the school district, from transportation all the way through into the classroom, into administration, every single team member is an educator. They're all part of that team educating Lubbock ISD students.
But y'all walk around, but when we break tonight, y'all walk around and read these and take away some of this, because I guarantee that there is a lot of this stuff that you may or may not have heard about, because there's so much going on every single day in our school districts. And here's this thing, the one thing that doesn't work, that's going to get attention. The thousands upon thousands of things that just quietly work every single day, that never gets the attention and the credit that it so desperately deserves.
Go back to your campus tomorrow and send an email out to your colleagues and say, hey, I was part of this training yesterday. We talked about the things we wish people knew about, and I just wanted to share it with my colleagues.
Yeah.
This is what I wish people knew. Y'all are awesome. And then whatever it is. Yeah.
Look at you assigning homework.
Everybody's spirits be good.
Well, good. Well, y'all, we could fill up all the chart paper, writing down what we think are the greatest challenges in public education today. And honestly, for our purposes in this training, we're really going to go with one, and it's one that really seems to be driving a lot of the challenges that we do have in public ed today, and that's our image. All of that negative, all those negative news stories, the negative conversation, and the things that people are saying about public ed and its educators these days have damaged the image of public education, and it's damaged the image of working and being an educator and working for the public school system. I've seen actually several news stories here lately about, well, first of all, the number of people who are leaving this profession in droves at semester, and we've never seen anything like it. But we're also seeing several smaller colleges and universities who are not having their education courses this spring and next fall semesters because there are not enough students to take them. We are seeing a shortage of people entering this profession. And I think a lot of that stems from the way people are talking about us and what we do. We've got to change that conversation. But how do you do that? How do you change a conversation and restore people's pride and their faith in the public school system? And so, okay, so y'all, when I met that man, we met in a high school teacher's lounge. No joke. We were not students. Just putting that out there, okay? He was the district public information officer, and I was a first-year teacher. So we meet, we get married. Y'all, Scott has degrees. Like, it was his job to get out all the good stuff that we do, right? It was his job to try to get that out in front of our community and in the paper and online. And so we meet, we get married, and we had gone to Austin one weekend to visit my in-laws, and I had taken their copy of the Austin American-Statesman, and I was reading it on the way home. And the front page article was about education in Texas. I can't remember exactly what it was. I think it was something focused on testing. You know, as usual, it had been investigated about an inch deep. You know, nobody really trying to really grasp the whole picture. And I was going off, okay? I was on a rant about the whole thing, how ridiculous the article was, how this was always the way it went. And I think Scott kind of snapped. And he said, look, what you have is an image problem, and what you need is a really good PR campaign. Now, I looked at this man and I said, image campaign, public relations, PR, those are not teacher words. That has literally nothing to do with teaching school and educating kids. And he, I did roll my eyes. And he said, so about that time, y'all, he points out the front windshield. He points at a billboard on I-35. And he said, look, right there, that's exactly what I'm talking about. That's what we need to do. And the billboard this man pointed to, it said, behold, the power of cheese. I said, you really have zero idea what my job looks like, don't you? And he said, no. He said, now look, he said, cheese is in a crisis. They got the same crisis headlines and conversation being told about them. See, cheese was unhealthy. It was high in cholesterol. It's bad for your heart. It's grosser than you thought. And because my husband still has the brain of a 14-year-old boy, he thought prevent disease, cut the cheese was the best headline he'd ever seen. Anyway, he said, look, the people who sell cheese, this is bad. So they all joined together and they have done an image campaign to change the way people think and feel about putting cheese in their grocery carts at the grocery store. He said, if people can do that for cheese, why can't we do that for the public school system in Texas? He said, what if you were driving around this state and you saw big billboards on the side of the highways that said, behold, the power of Texas public schools? I'm like, well, now that would be pretty amazing. And so it was at that point that we started trying to figure out, how do you do that? How do you start a PR campaign for public schools? And y'all, they did print ads and radio commercials, billboards. Bob Dole did a television commercial about cheese. Y'all, nobody's going to show up with millions of dollars to do an ad campaign and an image campaign like that for the public school system. But we pressed on. We were like, all right, well, let's start this nonprofit. We'll put up some billboards around Texas and try to, push out the good stuff and see where that gets us. So we started Friends of Texas Public Schools. And, well, I'll tell you that in a minute. I want to show you this commercial first. Now that my darling husband has explained to me what an image campaign is, I can spot them all over the place, all right? So y'all, a few years ago, high fructose corn syrup had a problem. And they launched, they started their image campaign with a television commercial. And I'm going to play it for you guys because I love this commercial, because for those of us who've worked in education, we have all been in a conversation like this one. Now, it wasn't about high fructose corn syrup, but it was about our district, our campus, or being a public school educator. I have been in this conversation defending my choice to send my personal children to public school. And what I want you guys to watch is how the lady in this commercial handles herself when a friend says something a little bit snarky to her at a birthday party.
Wow. You don't care what kids eat? Excuse me? And? You know what they say about it? What? Hey, it's that it's made from corn, it's natural, and like sugar, it's found in moderation. Love, that's hot. Get the facts. You're in for a sweet surprise.
Y'all, she had 3 quick facts. All she did, right, was lay 3 quick facts on that lady. She shut that lady down so fast and so politely that the only place that lady had left to go was to compliment her shirt. Y'all, I can't tell you how many times I've been in a conversation like that. I'm a total Friday Night Lights kind of girl. I love a Friday night football game because that's where all my kids are. All right, they're doing all manner of things. They're in the band, they're on the field, and they're whatever. All my kids are there. So I try to go. But inevitably, at some point during my enjoyable evening, there will be somebody who comes up to me and will say something like, "Man, I heard there was yet another fight at the high school again today. It is just out of control up there, isn't it?" All right, well, now I have a decision to make. I can go one of 2 ways with this. Perhaps it has been a really long week, okay? Maybe it was homecoming and I'd had to have a costume every day. Or it was October and I had been out at the Walmart at 9 o'clock the night before looking for a camo shirt because I had to hide from drugs. Let's go on and make it the last Friday of the month too, which y'all know what that meant. Fire drill. And I can unload on this poor person, right? I can say, "Oh my gosh, you have no idea how crazy it is." Well, now, not only have I confirmed whatever it was she came to me with in the first place, but now I have given her several extra things that y'all know darn good and well she is going to leave her conversation with me. She's going right over to the next section of the football stadium and she is going to share all that new information with all of her mom friends over there. Or I can do like this lady and I can step into that conversation and I can say, "You know what? I don't know what you heard. Our administration is really great about handling those things very quickly and very quietly." And then, because I'm paying attention to the successes of my campus and my district, I can lay 3 amazing things on her real quick. And the only thing that she can take away and share with somebody else is something good. I very politely, very professionally shut down whatever gossip, chatter, whatever it was that she came to me with. And I've only left her with something good. And y'all, it seems crazy, but it is actually that simple. When we first started Friends of Texas Public Schools, the first corporate sponsor that wanted to give us money was, honestly, not surprisingly, Charles Butt with HEB. Huge supporter of the public school system in this state. And in the most bizarre turn of events, Scott and I found ourselves in San Antonio, Texas, having lunch at his house. And he said, "Look, I love this idea. I think this is fantastic." He said, "We love the public schools because y'all are sending us an amazing workforce and we want to help." He said, "I'm going to give y'all some money, but that's not why I've asked you here." Or something. And Scott and I are looking at each other like, "Pretty sure that's not what came." But he said, "No," he said, "I'm going to do that, but I want to send you to spend, at my expense, I want you to go and spend a day with my marketing and advertising team at the Richards Group." And he said, "I want them to talk to you and y'all talk about how do you launch a PR campaign for public schools with a bang." Well, I mean, we were like amazed. We were like, "Absolutely, we would love that. That's incredible." So we went, we spent the day. And they were fantastic with us. And but at the end of the day, the gentleman who was the lead on that advertising and marketing campaign, he said something that has stuck with me now for years. He said, hey, this is a great idea, and I think we've got some, you're gonna get some headway with the things that we've discussed today, but he said, I also feel like I need to warn you. He said, you're not gonna be 100% successful in changing the way people think and feel about the public school system in this state until you get your own house in order. And I kind of bristled a little bit, and I said, okay. I said, explain to me what you mean. Well, this was in about 2006. And he said, well, I just looked it up. And he said, there are about 700,000 people in the state of Texas that are employed in some way by the public school system in Texas. And until you get all 700,000 of those people going out in their communities in the afternoons and telling the good stories, you're not going to change the way people think about the public school system. And I realized how right he really is. That number today in 2022 is just a hair over 800,000 people that get up and go to work for a public school system in this state. You get 800,000 of us ramped up and telling people that we're tired of being picked on because we are doing a good job, and let me tell you what that looks like. That is an army of people that will change the conversation about the public schools in this state. And we can, with 800,000 of us, we can do it one conversation at a time. You are constantly in conversations just like that. Now, sometimes those conversations are playing out online, right? Somebody's, and we're going to talk about that as we go through and how to use social media to get this out. But we like to use the word for what we are going to do in this training. We like to use the word ambassador because, quite frankly, I like the definition of it where it says an official messenger and representative. And y'all, the second you signed on the dotted line to come to work for Lubbock ISD, that minute you became an official messenger and representative of this district. People in our communities, y'all, they don't know exactly what you may do for the district, right? But they know you work for the district. So when they have a question or a concern or they've heard something, you know who they ask? They ask you. People rarely pick up the phone and call the main office to get clarification on something or something they've heard or ask their question. No, they ask the person that they know that works for the district that lives next door or that their kids play Little League with or is in their Sunday school class at church. We are the ones having those conversations. People are asked to serve as foreign ambassadors in other countries. We do not hire people to be foreign ambassadors to go someplace and discredit the United States, right? We do not want people in that position that say things like, oh, you wanted to relocate your multi-billion-dollar business to the U.S.? Are you insane? Have you seen our national debt? Why would you want to do that? No, it's right. They're there to inspire confidence and to celebrate our strengths. And that's what we've got to do for the public schools and for our local school districts. Y'all, we need people in our local school districts that are passionate about Lubbock ISD and the work that's being done here on behalf of the community and its children. We've got to be loyal to our districts, to our campus, to our profession, and we've got to advocate for ourselves. Nobody is going to go out there and talk about how amazing we are. And this is Texas, y'all. It's not bragging if it's true. We are killing it over here, and it's high time we told people. We shared with them the great things that are happening. I love this. Criticism can be good. When it's done well, it can motivate, educate, and inspire. But when it seems mean and destructive, it can break spirits, damage companies, and even ruin careers. And I'm going to tell y'all, the conversation about educators and public schools in this state has grown increasingly mean-spirited. Increasingly mean-spirited. There's a tweet just a week or so ago that, I don't know, some of y'all might have seen that go around where we were called babysitters. Yeah. That's mean-spirited. It's belittling and it's demeaning. I think we all know somebody who used to be in this profession with us. Oh, people are leaving. There's 1,000 reasons they tell us people will leave this profession within the first 5 years that they join. And one year I had this fantastic social studies teacher in my department, and he taught for a year and a half. He left us at semester to become a fireman. And I was so disappointed to see him leave. And so I had looked up those reasons that people leave our profession within the first 5 years, and I had written them down on a Post-it note. And on my conference period, I went down because I was going to figure out what had we done or not done that was causing him to leave our profession. So I go down. Of course, the first question I ask him is, of course, are you getting a pay raise to become a fireman? He looked at me and laughed, and he said, no. He said, at this point, it is a lateral move for me on the pay scale, which makes complete sense, right? A taxpayer-funded, public service, taxpayer-funded profession into another one makes complete sense. And then I started in on my list, right? And finally, I get about halfway through my Post-it, and he says, stop. It's not going to be anything on that list. He said, here's the deal. He said, my wife is a lawyer. And he said, she is at this law firm, and she's killing it. And the partners have started to notice. And so now they are inviting her to go to dinners and cocktail parties and galas and such. And he said, I go with her. And he said, when you go to stuff like that and they all work together, how at some point in the evening, the conversation always comes around and somebody says, hey, what do you do for a living? And he said, I am so sick of the reactions I get when I tell people I'm a teacher. He said, everybody loves a fireman. And I thought, wow, when did everybody stop loving their teachers? My mom used to speak to me of this mythical day when she started her career in this profession. Y'all, kids came to school and they respected the adults in the building, apparently, for the simple fact that they were the adults in the building. What? Times have changed. And I think it's because the mean-spirited criticism has damaged the image of being in education in any role these days. I have a really good friend who does this training along with me, and she and I wrote a book together a few years ago. And we met when our middle daughters were in kindergarten. And we became instant friends because she is also a teacher. And she talked about public school the same way I did. She loved it, talked about how amazing it was. And so we became fast friends. And so she had taught for 7 years, and then she stayed home with her girls until they both started kindergarten. And then she went back to work. So that August that she went back to work, she would call me every day that entire month to tell me, give me I started to call it the classroom cuteness update, about the cute new border she just bought or the fabric she just sewn up into curtains to hide the ugly bookcases, Well, one day she calls and she is telling me this story about her husband, Andy, who is a Dallas firefighter, and how she had convinced him to help her haul the section of the garage that had been housing, all that stuff you can't teach without, back up to this new classroom, right? And she said after they were done, he wanted to stop for coffee. And so they stopped at this convenience store because she says he's too cheap to go to Starbucks. So they stopped at this convenience store to get themselves some coffee. And she said, he's being a typical fireman. He's chatting it up with everybody in there. She said, I'm standing at the register waiting. And he gets up there and the lady says, hey, do y'all want to buy a lottery ticket? It's like $1 gazillion you might win. And then you wouldn't have to go to work Monday morning. And he said, oh, well, I wouldn't quit my job if I won the lottery. And the clerk kind of looked at him like, she said, what do you do? And he said, I'm a fireman. I got the best job there is. I put out fires and save people's lives. I wouldn't quit if I won the lottery. And when she said that, I immediately thought back to Everybody Loves a Fireman. Yeah. You know what you did all day today? Yep. You put out fires. You know what else you did today? You saved a whole lot of kids' lives. These jobs are not that different. You know what the difference is? The difference lies in two things: the image and how they talk about what they do. Firemen are always telling you what a great job it is. It's fun. Y'all, it's not an easy job either, okay? Y'all, they've seen things they cannot unsee. They wear 100 pounds of gear. They're standing in front of something that's on fire. It's 100 degrees outside, and they can't wait to get in there, right? You know what you don't see? You do not see the fireman on the curb going, oh my God, this hose, it is so heavy. It's a difference, right, in how they talk about what they do. Now, it is a great job. It's like a fraternity party every third day up there at the fire station. They drive the biggest thing on the road. It's got lights, it's got sirens. But again, it's not an easy job, but they love it. That's how we have to start talking about our profession. We've got to start telling people how much we love this, because people, honestly, they've forgotten what lies in the hearts of people who've chosen to work for their community school district. All right, we do, again, do not boo. We have a little book study, and I do mean little, okay? If you did not get one of these when you came in, do not worry, we have plenty. This is the book that we will be reading during the training. It's called Hard Optimism. Do y'all see the size of this book? We're not reading the whole thing either, okay? Look, I have rules about staff development, and one of them is that I will never roll up to a school district in the middle of the school year with some gigantic research-based book for y'all to read, okay? This book is itty-bitty. And y'all, I will also go further to tell you that I do not like books on optimism or being positive, okay? I have a real strong sarcastic streak, as you have already, I'm sure, noticed, and I do not like books like this, and because I'm not Pollyanna, okay? I'm just not. And my husband brought this book home one day, and he said, hey, babe, I just finished the best book on how to be more optimistic. You need to read it. So if you like this book and you want to recommend it to somebody, choose your words carefully, okay? No, this is the only book about being optimistic that I've ever liked, because the whole premise in this book is that it is enough to not be negative. That the people who are actually true optimists in life are actually people who are simply not negative. That's doable. And I put my favorite quote from the book up here. It says, a negative frame of mind saps your energy as well as the energy of the people around you. Heaven's sakes, have you ever worked with somebody like that? You think, I'm just going to zip in the copy room real quick, make this copy. No, I'm not. It does. It weakens your confidence. It hurts your creativity, your problem-solving skills, and you end up focused on obstacles, and that interferes with your ability to spot opportunities. Finally, pessimism drains the joy out of life, leaving you emotionally spent and less effective in dealing with others. Now, I don't know exactly what everybody in here's specific job is for Lubbock ISD, but I will say that you need all the attributes listed up here by 8:02 every day. Yeah, and if being negative has that kind of effect on how well we do what we do, it's something for us to look at. And y'all, I'll be real honest. Negativity is something that plagues us as a profession. So much so that, okay, when I was doing my teacher pre-service days in college, we used a book by Harry and Rosemary Wong called The First Days of School. Do y'all know what it says to first-year teachers about the teacher's lounge? Don't go. Get out. Don't go in there. It is the black hole of negativity, and you won't make it out alive. Like, we literally teach the new people not to go in the teacher's lounge because it's a bad, negative place. It is something that does plague us. And so this is a great little read. It's really good right now for this moment of time that we're in. And so I really do think you guys are going to enjoy it. All right. Y'all, our goal with this whole ambassador training and these sessions that you have been asked to be a part of is simply to be proud. Be proud of what you do. Be proud of the things that you are accomplishing every single day, and do not hesitate to tell people about it. Be proud, be loyal, be positive, tell your story. Y'all, every single person sitting in this room has a story to tell about why you're here or why you come back and do this day after day, year after year. Okay? Mine, I will tell you, well, look, I was one fired up first year teacher, okay? I had the cutest classroom in the entire high school, and I had spent my summer writing lessons on the foundations of American government that were going to inspire the next generation of elected officials in our nation. And then reality hit. Yeah, her name was Laura, and she was in my fourth period U.S. government class. If you've ever taught on a 7-period day, you know that fourth period is lunch, so I got to have her all those extra minutes. And for the first 2 weeks of school, Laura ran fourth period. I let her. Y'all, she scared me to death. I didn't know what to do with her. She was loud, she was opinionated, she was allegedly affiliated with some type of local gang. I did not ask any questions. And then, so, you know, about the end of the first week or second week of school, the bell rings, and I said, you know, in my teacher voice, the one I had been practicing all summer long, I said, all right, everyone have a seat. It's time for us to get started. At which point, Laura walks right up to the front of the room where I am, and she gets right up in my face and she says, I'll sit down when I want to, not when you tell me to. Which is indeed a first year teacher nightmare, because right now you got to do something, because there's, you know, 32 other pairs of eyes looking at you thinking, what you going to do about that, lady? So I just looked at her, and in the biggest bluff y'all have ever seen, I said, well then, I suggest you want to already. And y'all, to my complete shock, she sat down. And then a funny thing started to happen. I started to get to know her. She would come in before school, or she would stay in after the lunch bell rang, or she would come by after school. And what I learned about this kid was that she came from a very verbally abusive home. She lived with a grandfather who, well, she lived with her grandfather because her mother was in prison. She was serving a sentence for selling heroin. The grandfather, man, he had some vile things to say about her. She was half white, half Hispanic, and he didn't like that. And she told me this story one day after school about how she learned how to shoplift. And it was because when she and her younger sister were still in the custody of their mom, the mom would get strung out for days on end and forget that she had children, much less that there was nothing in their house for those two girls to eat. And that Laura could not stand listening to that baby sister cry herself to sleep at night because she was hungry. So she learned how to shoplift. And she said the first thing she ever stole were canned goods from the grocery store. But when she got them home, neither of them knew how to use a can opener, so they still went to bed hungry. It was in that moment that I clearly remember thinking, whoa, wait 1 second. You mean to tell me that my job as an educator in this state is to make this kid focus on U.S. government for the whatever 102 minutes a day I have her, that not, you know, this kid's worried about what's that man going to say to me when I get home this afternoon, or what's going to happen when mom gets out of prison, and you think I'm going to be able to make her pay attention and do all the U.S. No, right? And the semester progresses, y'all. We're waiting on the lunch bell, and it's just a few days before we got out for the winter break. And my kids are talking amongst themselves about what they have asked for Christmas. And I have this one darling, and she is telling everybody in our class how she is going to get the car that she has told her parents she wants for Christmas, but they are evil, horrible people. Is they actually expect her to get a job to pay for her own gas and car insurance. I mean, can you even? It's a hard call as a teacher. Do you call CPS on that one, or do you wait? Anyway, Laura is listening, and she chimes in, and she says, are you kidding me? You over there complaining, she had different words, about somebody buying you a car as a Christmas present. She said, we've never had Christmas presents, and you're complaining because somebody's going to buy you a car. Well, all right, so you know what I did, and don't y'all be sitting there judging, because y'all know every single person sitting in this room would have done the same thing. Yes, I bought her something for Christmas, and I wrapped it up, And I brought it the last day, and I said, during class, I said, hey, don't leave today until you've come by here and seen me. So she comes in, and I'm behind my desk, and she comes in after school, and I hand this wrapped Christmas present to her, right? That kid does not touch it. She does not take it. She does not say a single word. She just stands there staring at it. And then these big old crocodile tears start rolling down her cheeks. And yeah, don't pretend you'd have cried too. I did. And so it finally dawns on me. She doesn't want to open it. And it finally dawns on me, if you've never had anything to open before, there is a certain amount of joy in the anticipation of not knowing what it is. And so I said, here, take this home, and look, you have to look at it every single day until Christmas, and then you can open it. So she took it, and she went home. So y'all, when we came back, I didn't have Laura anymore. Mine is a one-semester course. So she was running the show in somebody else's class. And however, y'all know, I still managed to see Laura before school and at lunch and after school and several times during the school day when she's supposed to be in somebody else's class, you know, and they take the long way back from the bathroom. She'd open the door and pop her head in. Hey, Miss Milder, everything all right? Everything's fine, Laura. I got this now. Go. Last day of school, y'all. I'm standing in the hallway, right, as they tell us to do. I'm ushering everyone to the nearest available exit. And here she comes. And she walks up to me, and she's got some sack in her hand. I really wasn't honestly paying that close of attention. And she walks up to me, and she yells, hey, miss, because Laura is that kid that only has the one volume. And she says, hey, miss, I bought you a present. And then proceeded to take, a good 5 minutes to assure me that what was in this sack, she paid for that, y'all. Yeah. And so here it is. Little glass plate. You probably can't see it, but that's the Lord's Supper embossed on the bottom of this plate. Now, y'all, I will tell you, during my course as a teacher, there were more expensive teacher gifts that I received as a teacher. But that is the only one that sits on my Thanksgiving table every single year, right next to my wedding china and my crystal and all the fancy dishes, is that one. It holds the cranberry sauce. And we use it every Thanksgiving because for me, that was the kid. That was the kid that taught me what real success in the public school system looks like. Because for Laura and the thousands of kids just like her that get up and come to a public school, we are a safe place for them to be. Studies show that children are safer at school than they are in their own homes when it comes to crimes against children. She was free of the verbal abuse that she found in her home. In fact, she spent every day surrounded by people who are highly trained in how to build a child's self-esteem. And y'all, we gave that kid a rock-solid education so that she went on to become the first person in her family to ever graduate from high school. She could go out, she could immediately get a job, and she did not have to make the same mistakes that her parents had made. And I don't care what kind of rating system somebody wants to create at a state level, or what kind of test they're going to create next, or what office somebody gets them elected to or appointed to. There is no one who will ever be able to measure what we do in the public school system with a stupid bubble sheet. It's impossible. You all have that story. Everybody in here has had a Laura. You have a couple a year. They're the ones that make you come back after the day has gone all crazy and everything was bad. That's the reason you come back. Those are the kids that we've got to start telling people about. We have to remind people we love this job because we love their kids and we want to be here with them. They have forgotten. All of that crazy negative media attention has made them forget and made them question what really lies in the hearts of the people who've chosen this as their life's work. And we have to change that, and we can through the conversations that we have about what we do. We joke about having a teacher voice, but you know your teacher voice, and I don't care what your job is in a school district, you've got a finely honed teacher voice. It's the voice you use when you want people to sit up and pay attention to you and to really, you better listen, right? That's the voice. It's time. It is time to use that teacher voice to take back the story, to tell the real story of what's going on in here. All right, we have a little bit of homework, okay? Now listen, this is super simple. I just want you guys to go back to your campus or your department, and I want you to help engage the people that you work with in looking at what is working. Do some kind of something. I'll give you a couple of quick examples of something that we can do to get people to focus on the positive. Y'all, we need this right now. We need to focus on the things that are working because it's so easy to get bogged down in the things that don't. And I'm gonna come back to this, okay, so y'all don't panic. We've had people do this 100 different ways. Do it in however you can get participation at your campus or department, okay? We've had people do cute little bulletin boards, what's the scoop, and then give everybody some ice cream or something to write, just real quick, stick it in somebody's box, have them write something. We've done this where you put, we did similar to this, we put every department up and had dry erase markers and asked them to write on those frames something great that was happening in their department. And then when everybody's is blank, but one, it's like it creates a little bit of, pressure, a little peer pressure to dial in and to write something that's positive. Look, these ambassadors just cut out the letters for proud and hung little pens and pencils right there, and people just went by and wrote something that they were proud of about their campus. Super simple. Keep it simple, okay? Now this, you just blank pieces of paper. You can put a pad of Post-it notes, have people write something great. If you want to get crazy like these people, you could do, we had a team do this taco, and then they printed off that looks like the Taco Bell packets and gave them to everybody. These crazies, they did, we have a latte to be thankful for, and they did coffee cups. Right, just anything, it does not, you could do a Google form, okay? You do not have to make this difficult. It is simply getting the people that you work with focused on the things that are working. Because if we're gonna change the conversation to the good stuff, we have to know what it is, right? We have to be focused on what's working. All right, I'm gonna go back to that slide. And then we're just gonna read 1, 2, and 5 in the Hard Optimism book. And our next session is March 10th. Now, real quick, before we break, on your table, and I saw several of you already doing this, there is a QR code, and I will put them up here if you didn't have one on your table for whatever reason. Fill in this Google form, okay? Because there is a present at the end of this training, and you're gonna want one. So fill out the Google form, okay? Also, one of my other rules about staff development is it should never end unless there is a present. So tonight I have, and I don't know what Scott has done with them. Are they by the door? I have new Sharpies for everyone. Which it's January and you need new Sharpies because look, this one, look how it's perfect. It's perfect. Nobody has ruined it yet. So yeah. Yeah, so y'all grab you one on the way out the door. Just pick your favorite color. I will not assign you colors. So, but y'all, thank you so much. Does anybody have a question? Yes. You need books. Okay, come see us when we break and we've got books. All right, are we good? Okay, thank you for working all day and then coming to this.